Good afternoon. We're filming this today on Saturday afternoon, and so we've had a good day out here. It's been awful hot, so maybe it'll cool off some in the near future. Uh, we'll go over our prayer list. It's kind of extended today. Please continue praying for the flood victims of last week's flood. Uh, please pray for Roxana Gross. She's got heart problems and waiting for a bed to open in Nashville. Heather Campbell, please pray for her. She had surgery. Please continue praying for Brandon Swartz, Kay Barrett, and Nikki Alonso, and they're all battling cancer. Uh, so we have also pray for the families. Please sympathy for the family of Sonia Melton and Frida Davis and Janice Bailey. They they passed away this past week. Please sympathy for the families of the soldiers killed this week in Afghanistan. Please pray for those folks over there. They're having a terrible time. So keep all those folks in your prayers, please. And but today's lesson is going to be a little bit different, I guess. There's a song that we sing at church. It's "Let the Lower Lights Be Burning," and I hope you've heard that song. I heard it the other day on the radio, and Johnny Cash was singing it, and I've never heard him sing it before, but he's pretty good. And it kind of got me to thinking about what that song really means. And so I've done some investigating on it, and I come up with a little story that I'd like to share with you. It was growing dark. The waves of the vast Lake Erie, almost a little ocean in itself, hissed and curled against the base of the inner lighthouse near Cleveland, Ohio. The lighthouse keeper's job wasn't always convenient. His job was to keep the great lighthouse inside the harbor lit, and also to tend and light a line of smaller oil lamps to guide ships into the channel toward the harbor. The inner harbor had been created as a safe haven where ships could flee when sudden dangerous Lake Erie storms arose. Despite the great lighthouse beacon, a ship could be dashed to pieces on the rocks without the little lights to lead them through the narrow rock-lined passage. You can imagine that it would be what it would be like to go out into the gathering blackness and painstakingly trudge from light to light, filling and lighting each lantern. It was a thankless task, and the lighthouse keeper had been on the job for several years and rarely had any ship needed to find the harbor at night. Why should he even bother? Maybe it was that discouraging thought, or his health, or an oversight. But whatever the reason, the lights were not lit that night. As the night deepened, a violent storm hurled itself upon Lake Erie that could toss great ships, and as if they were toys, and smash them against the shoreline with terrifying, deadly menace. The storms on this huge lake are not to be trifled with. As the tempest grew into roaring mountains of turbulent waves and screaming winds, a desperate captain tensed beside the wheel of his ship. Nearby stood an old pilot, also straining his eyes into the ominous blackness underneath the ship. Underneath, the ship heaved and creaked, and the wooden decks were slippery with water. As the captain squinted into the darkness, "Are you sure this is Cleveland?" he asked. The pilot, "Quite sure, sir," replied the pilot. His hands clapped fast upon the wheel. "But where are the lower lights?" "They are out, sir." "Can you make it?" "We must, sir, or we'll perish." There was nothing else they could do. Desperately, the old pilot tried to find his way into the channel without the lights. That should have been there, but the pitiless sea fractured and pulverized the ship against the rocky shoreline. Many lives were lost that night, all because of one man who did not do his job. The history, uh, history of a young man named Philip P. Bliss read with horror the headlines and the story of how one man's careless negligence could be so deadly. But it was only when he heard D.L. Moody use it in a sermon that struck Philip Bliss to the heart. Moody ended his stirring sermon with, "Brethren, the Master will take care of the great lighthouse. Let's keep the lower lights burning." As Philip told friends afterwards, when I heard Mr. Moody use it as an illustration in his sermon that night, I cried out in my heart, "Bliss, you are just as guilty as the man in the story. As a Christian, you are to be one of the lower lights shining brightly, so some poor soul tossed about on the sea of life may find safety and everlasting life in the haven that God has prepared." The story stuck in his mind forcefully, and within a week, Philip Bliss had written the hymn which we sing today. Brightly beams our Father's mercy from his lighthouse evermore. But to us he gives the keeping of the lights along the shore. We are entrusted with responsibilities as well, like the lighthouse keeper. People are depending on us to complete our jobs. Some responsibilities are an opportunity to be a witness for Christ. Do we keep our lights shining? Are we showing responsibility by shining for Christ as in this dark world, sharing the way of safety with people who are drowning in sin and misery? That's something to think about. Do we keep our lights burning? I'll go ahead and read the full song. I wish I could sing it to you, but you would be sick if I did. It's "Let the Lower Lights Be Burning." Look it up on the internet, and I'm sure you can find it on there. Brightly beams our Father's mercy from his lighthouse evermore. But to us he gives the keeping of the lights along the shore. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the wave. Some poor fainting, struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. Dark the night of sin has settled, loud the angry billows roar. Eager eyes are watching, longing for the lights along the shore. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the wave. Some poor fainting, struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. Trim your feeble lamp, my brother. Some poor sailor tempest tossed, trying now to make the harbor in the darkness may be lost. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the wave. Some poor fainting, struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. I'm as guilty as that man too. I need to share the gospel with more folks. We all do. That's what our job is. We've been given a great commission to go forth and to spread the gospel. Let your light so shine before the world, and we need to do more of that. We need to make sure that if we're out and we shine our light and we make a good example of ourselves, and we should know that everyone is watching, especially God, because God knows our heart. He's watching the things that we do. Let your light so shine. So thank you for watching. This is the end of my lesson. I hope you liked it. Be sure to look that song up on the internet. I'm sure you can find it on there. Like I said, keep all of our people that I mentioned, please pray for them. Keep our servicemen and women and your prayers, because they got a hard job right now. Keep our first responders and our doctors and nurses and all the folks that take care of us and those less fortunate than we are. Thank you. God bless. See you next time.